Fantastic. Hey, I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. This is John with Wow Support. Checking in with you guys on our weekly podcast. We're a minute or two late. Apologize for that, but thanks for sticking with us. On the flight deck today, we've got Artie. He's helping run the show. Artie, tell us a
Hi,
little bit about
I'm
you.
just dealing with some technical issues that seem to pop up right at the worst possible times.
That's kind of Murphy's law, right? Just whatever can go wrong will go wrong at the worst possible time. If I ever meet that guy, I'll be tempted to do some bodily harm, but his laws are antithetical to progress. But
Oh,
also
I
joining
feel
us
like
today is Jackson. Go
hey
ahead.
everybody, my name's Jackson. But I was gonna say, we wouldn't be a tech company if we didn't have technical issues at the worst times. It feels like the better you are at tech, the more you see how many problems there are all the time. Whereas the average user probably has no idea.
Could be. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things as we continue to build the show, as we build our progress and move this forwards. Uh, the more features, the more complication we add to things, it's a it's not elegant. It's something that's going to just constantly cause us hiccups and glitches here and there. So, thank you everybody for sticking with us. So, we've got a fantastic show lined up today. We've got some topics of discussion. Jackson, can you tell us what's on deck?
All right, what we have today, we're gonna talk a little bit about Google Ads, which is something that I kind of, I guess I could say I specialize in that. Um, we have VPNs in Russia. There is some interesting situations going on there. Um, Apple's geolocation seems like there are some exploits there. And on top of everything, Microsoft, they are still a tech company and they do develop their software as Notepad gets spell check.
Oh, that's a big one for me. It's like, how long has Notepad been a thing? Like that was around in Windows 3.1, I think,
Oh yeah.
and it's just now getting spell check. Web browsers had spell check before Notepad. Like,
It's funny how behind they seem to
41
be
years.
sometimes. Yeah,
say that again, Artie.
41 years.
since what? Since Notepad has been in existence or
Yep, 1983.
oh my gosh. In 41 years, it has scarcely been used by the public.
I mean, just a few months ago, they added layers into, what is it, Microsoft Paint, where you could have multiple layers and draw on different layers. So,
Okay, Microsoft, I see you. Although I feel like Microsoft Paint has become such a meme. At least with my generation, you would always say it looks like you did that in Microsoft Paint, and that was the joke, you know? Because
you,
as a
that
kid, that was my free time was, there was the base applications of Windows, and you go to Microsoft Paint and you draw around and make a terrible drawing as a kid.
it, not much has
You know,
changed.
it's not much has changed. Yeah, it was kind of the same for my generation when we had the old black and white Mac classics. Oh golly,
Right.
you got to okay, black and white. You got to paint with repeating patterns. So you could do like bricks or arrows going up and down. It was super basic, but
Takes
you
me
could do
back to
lines, you could do fills, no
an
color.
Etch-a-Sketch, right? The
I
I
think an
think an
etch a
Etch a
sketch
Sketch
is
is more
probably
advanced.
yeah.
Oh no.
The
Oh
reboot
man.
process is faster.
Whenever I think of like an Etch-a-Sketch drawing, the only thing that ever comes to mind is that scene from Elf when he Buddy, he draws the entire it was like the Mona Lisa on the Etch-a-Sketch.
That takes some time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That makes me wonder how they actually pulled that together in the movie. Like
I don't
that
know.
had to take a minute or two for somebody to draw in very complicated etch a sketch drawings.
Alternately, they just did it and then posted a photograph of it on the Etch-a-Sketch.
That would be way faster.
Yep.
You see, RD,
Although
you just
I don't know if
ruined the
cheaper.
magic.
It would be
Oh,
cheaper, I
I'm
think.
all about ruining the magic.
Oh man. Well, the other thing I wonder, it's just a magnet, isn't it? An Etch Sketch. It's just a magnet, and some iron fillings or something, filings.
It's what is it? Aluminum. It's not magnetic. It's more of a static based type thing.
Oh,
Yeah, and
well,
the stylus is just a pinpoint that's touching the screen.
right.
And all it does is just move the dust off of the screen.
Oh, I see. I see. Gotcha.
One of my favorite
That's
things to do when I first got one was draw out an entire perfect window so I could see the mechanism behind the dust.
that's funny. It's above my pay grade, I guess. I don't even know how an Etch Sketch works.
It's simply you've got one dial that's the x-axis, you've got the other dial that's the y-axis. Move them together,
You
and you
twist
can
them
move
together.
diagonally.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's next level right there.
definitely worth playing with a couple times. But yeah, Notepad. It's finally got spell check. I use Notepad all the time with stuff. I hope they don't introduce fonts and styles and stuff, because one of the ways I'm really, when I'm copying pasting between applications, I need to strip out the font information, because sometimes you can't right click paste as plain text. You got
Mhm.
to paste through Notepad. It's a quick and dirty way of doing things, but if they add metadata to the text, Notepad will no longer be useful for me.
Well, I'll say one thing that I found annoying with it now, since Windows 11, as far as I've used it, is it will remember what you've had open. So like if you close it and then you open it back up, like I actually don't like that. It'll have like a 20 tabs open. I'm like, no, I closed this. That's why I didn't have it open on my desktop anymore. But
Right? We've
I
got
mean,
no
at
control
least
of
it's
Notepad.
at least it no longer feels like it's early 2000s. It at least feels slightly more modern with the redesign, um,
Yep.
which makes it a little bit nicer to use, I'll say, than what it was before.
A lot of the changes that they are doing to their programs are based on what other programs have done. So they're trying to copy others instead of, keeping it like I can see adding the spell check being a good thing, but functions like reopening all your tabs, there needs to be an option in the settings to turn that kind of stuff off, and Microsoft rarely has the option to turn anything off.
Although with the spell check, I believe there is an option to turn it off, isn't there?
Yes, with the spell check and with the autocorrect. Um, and the people that played around with the autocorrect found that it was about 20% effective. They would purposefully misspell multiple words, and autocorrect would not kick in. So it's still in a beta phase, but you'd think that
Yeah, it
with Word,
should
with
not have autocorrect.
yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
if you're modifying code and IP addresses, or you're just
exactly,
taking basic documentation notes, it should not autocorrect a thing. It should take what you
Mm-hmm.
type in.
Because that's usually what anyone uses Notepad for anyway. I mean, is
Well,
to
yeah,
edit files like that, or like raw text, or things that wouldn't be in a Word document, like a word processing document. You would pull it up in Notepad because it's just raw text.
exactly.
yeah. I mean, there's other text editors like Notepad plus plus, or um, anyways, I could list a couple, but you could do advanced features, and people have said, well, just use that instead. That works unless you're on a client computer and you don't have that
Hmm.
tool, so you can't do the thing. I've just gotten real used to just Notepad and data in, data out, be done.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'll say though, I remember I rediscovered the Sticky Notes app on Windows. That's wonderful. Like I'm a person, I keep sticky notes on me all the time. I love sticky notes. And um But it's annoying because sometimes you want it like right there in your face, and the only thing in front of your face is your screen. So it's like, well, I'm not gonna stick a sticky note on my desktop. So, but then
Yeah.
you discover the sticky notes app, and it's like, I think it's made by Microsoft, is it not? But it's I love it. It made my day when I remembered that app. I was like, oh, I need to download that again, and then I can fill my desktop with a bajillion sticky notes of things I have to do.
Yeah, I do sticky notes also, but I do the Ohio method. It's only handle it once. So I'll write on a sticky note. I will do what's on the sticky note, and the sticky note is no longer a thing that I edit and use in perpetuity. It's one and done. It's very
See,
wasteful when I think about it.
but there's something satisfying about ripping that sticky note off of the wall, crumpling it up, and throwing it in the trash. Like,
Mission accomplished.
I'm done. Oh
Yeah, the
man.
tactile sense of accomplishment is definitely a thing. And you get the peeling it off the surface. You get the slow, like, you know, it's fighting you, saying no, no, I'm hanging on, and yank it off, and nope, you're done. It's gone.
Right. All right. Well, should we transition here to maybe talk a little bit about Google Ads?
No, let's talk about Notepad for the entire hour.
Our
Yeah,
our
no,
viewers
what else we got on deck?
our viewers are going to be very engaged. Um, well, with Google Ads, and this kind of goes into Google as a search engine in general, the way it operates and the way it works. And there were some things in the news recently, although nothing's been exactly confirmed. But Google is always um, changing and improving, per se, their algorithm of how you show up on Google if you are a site owner, if you have a website and host it on the internet. Um, and it's a pretty complicated system, although Google says Google search is really simple. I would disagree with them. There are lots of little ins and outs and loopholes that you do kind of have to be aware of if you want to show up on Google and be in the number one spot, especially in Google Ads, because that's when you're putting money, you're throwing money at it, right? And so you definitely have to be more aware of how search works and how your ads are going to be shown. Um, so yeah, it's an involved process, and you do kind of have to know a little bit of marketing. Although I say, um, anybody that has some time to do some reading and understand the way it works could get up and running. I won't promise you that you'll be able to do great and have amazing click-through rates and conversion rates, but I mean, you can at least avoid the big no-nos, right? Um, because Google, because it's free to use, Google Ads is not, right? That's how they make their money. That's how they are um, worth billions of dollars. And so Google wants you to spend money, and that's always my motto is anytime you're if anyone who uses Google Ads knows that Google is constantly trying to tell you, hey, you should do this, add more keywords, add more broad match keywords. It'll help your conversion rate and you'll outreach more people. Um, but it's not. They just want you to spend more money.
Yep.
But
Well, and they've got a brilliant model, right? They want you to use their service, and so they're going to help people get free access to whatever resource they want. When you get a company that wants to advertise, they're going to figure out how to make them pay for the free experience everybody else enjoys, and also pay for the data centers and the executives and the programmers that are working. So, yeah, ads is probably not a cheap adventure. I could probably say that somebody that doesn't know what they're doing could go in and spend an insane amount of money for very little return.
absolutely. And that's the biggest gotcha with Google Ads, right? Because even from the dashboard, the base statistics that you see, for example, are going to be impressions, clicks, your click-through rate, and cost is usually the default what they show, right? Um, these metrics can be helpful to see, okay, how many people am I getting to? Um, but it's not showing you how effective your ad actually is. Because if we break down the process of of a customer or a user finding your ad and how you get those statistics. Essentially, an impression is how many times Google has showed your ad in those top, 3 sponsored results that everyone is familiar with. Anytime that shows up, that's an impression. Now, if someone clicks on it, that's a click. Or if they click anywhere on the ad or interact with it, it's considered a click. Now, your click-through rate is the percentage of people who see your ad actually click it. And the actual percentage of what they consider to be a good click-through rate, in my opinion, isn't great. Because if you take a look at actually how most advertisers perform, the average click-through rate, I think, is around 5% for most industries. However, the top, 10th percentile of advertisers are getting somewhere like 15%. And that's the difference between your average Joe who says, okay, I'm going to set up Google Ads. I'm going to show my ads to some people and get some clicks. They usually get around 5%. But if you know what you're doing, you want to shoot for somewhere around at least 15%. 12 to 15 is considered a good click-through rate. And so that's where the big gap is between people who specialize in Google Ads and those who don't. And it's super easy to throw your money away just trying to get impressions or just trying to get some clicks. And then you get no return on that investment because if you look at your conversion rate, it's 0% or 2%, which is not great. So there's a lot of things that you have to know what you're looking for to actually measure how am I doing or am I actually reaching out to anybody?
Mm-hmm. So if you've got a customer that's looking for, let's just go generic here for Wild Sport. If we've got a customer that says, I want my my Sharpies to be number one on Google, you could do that, right?
You can absolutely do that. You can throw as much money as you want at it, and you can probably show up at the top. Although there are some things which we can talk about here in a moment that not always is it. I'll throw $1,000 at this single click and I'll always be at the top. Sometimes Google will actually take someone else who may offer $1 for a click.
Hmm. So you're bidding, but it's not just a dollars win. It's probably the quality of the site, right?
Exactly. So what Google does, and in recent news, well, alleged news, I won't go into it because we don't know anything for sure. The way
The prevailing theories.
Google, well, it's strange because if you are actually in your ad dashboard, right, you have something that's called a quality score, and that is the quality of your ad and the average experience that a user has when they click on your ad. So, for example, what they're measuring, what does your landing page look like? How accessible is it? How well does it load? Are people staying on that landing page? That's kind of what Google's looking for. So it'll go through and crawl through your website and see, and it'll guess the user experience, and then it will use actual user experience to change your quality score over time. Then with that, there's when you're advertising to specific keywords. If I search in Sharpie for sale using your example, right? That's a keyword that me as an advertiser, I'm going to target. I'm going to say, okay, anyone that searches for Sharpie for sale, I want to make sure my ad's showing up. But if someone types in, say, pen for sale, I don't want to show up for that because anyone looking for a pen, they might be looking for a Sharpie, but the percentage of people that I'm going to find in that keyword that are actually looking for my product is going to be lower. So I don't want to spend money on that keyword. I want to spend money on high return keywords, high valuable keywords, which are things that are directly related to the Sharpies that I'm selling, right? So the relation to your keyword, to your targeted keyword, to what your ad says, that's also goes into quality score. And I think there's one or two other factors that go into one of them is click-through rate, right? So your expected click-through rate, how much does Google, or how often does Google think someone will click on your ad? Now the reason, going back to that whole idea that even though I might be bidding $1,000 for a click, somebody that's bidding the $1 or $5 for a click could beat me out and they'll be on top. And they'll actually they'll end up paying less than what I will to win. The reason for that is it all goes down to this quality score, because the actual cost per click that gets calculated is a factor of your quality score with your ad rank. So without getting too far into depth with it, and I'd have to pull up my entire document with all my information to even give you a real good representation of this. But Google wants money. So they're not doing this out of the kindness of their heart. Oh, this person they've spent more time and they have a much nicer ad. The matter of fact is Google doesn't get paid unless someone clicks on it. So if Google doesn't think someone's going to click on your $1,000 ad, they would much rather show the dollar ad with the chance that someone's going to actually click on it and then they get paid. So that's kind of the game you play with Google Ads is setting your bid high enough so that you're competitive. But before any of that is you have to improve your site, your keyword targeting, and your click-through rate. All of that has to go first because it is ultimately the factor in how high you rank and how much you pay.
That's cool. I would imagine it's also on the other side. If you're not paying for Google's enhancements or their sponsored links or whatever, the quality of the site determines your page ranking organically.
Absolutely. Now that is something. Again, with that recent news, Google says that it doesn't, although it does for Google Ads, and they've said that for a long time. But they've always said, "No, your Google search, we don't take into consideration your page reputation." I think is what they called it, or something to that sense. So we actually don't know because they don't release their algorithm for free. I mean, it's not just open source. So we don't actually know. But supposedly not. Supposedly what they do look for is how relevant the information you provide is to your targeted keyword. So now we're taking a step away from Google Ads. If we're looking at just your average organic search, let's say, that's what you call search engine optimization, SEO, if you've ever heard that buzzword before. Which seems like it's also becoming a dying field. Not because it's not needed, but it seems like most people are just going to Google Ads rather than first seeking to improve SEO, which, again, before you even consider Google Ads, you should first see, how am I doing organically? If you're not going to do well organically, it's not going to translate that well to Google Ads. So organically, you set your targeted keywords, kind of like you do with Google Ads. Anyone searching for this, show my site. But what Google does look for mostly for organic searching is they'll actually crawl through your website and they'll look for content. What kind of content's on this website? Do they have that keyword? Does it show up a lot? Does it seem like they're credible? Do they have what about other sites? What do other sites say about your website? Do they link to your site as a source of information? And so that kind of gives you ranking. And so if your site gives evidence that it is a source of information or it's credible or it can give an answer to someone's response, then it's more likely to show up at the top.
That makes sense. So it's really just you got to immerse yourself into the subject matter if you want to raise your presence on the web to the right level. You can't just
Absolutely.
say, I want to throw $1,000 at this and be on top. You got to really research it and think about it.
You do. And again, there's a certain point you can throw a decent amount of money on it, and Google's happy to take it, and they'll throw you up top for a certain amount of time. But you do have to at least give them a little something to say, yeah, I'm at least worth it. Somebody's gonna click on my ad, and then I'll actually pay you.
It's
I
not
miss
just money, it's the
metadata.
quality.
Yeah.
What's that?
I miss metadata.
Yeah.
It's still there. It's still a thing. But now it's a lot of pick and choose, right? Everything is crafted exactly to cater to whoever's searching, right? And that's the other thing that is fairly new with the search engine. and this is something that they've released publicly, saying, "Hey, we're changing this." This was a huge thing for Google Ads. When you're targeting keywords, you can set. There's three different types. There is exact match, there is phrase match, and there's broad match. Broad meaning, well, back in the day, broad meant anything that was related to that keyword or have that keyword in it. Essentially, phrase match was like, okay, anything with this phrase, these four string words together, like Sharpie for sale near me. I would say, okay, phrase match of this keyword. Anybody that searches for something that or very similar to that, I want to show up. Exact match used to be exact match. If I put in Sharpie for sale near me, somebody had better put in Sharpie for sale near me in their Google search for my ad to show up. Now, I think it was around 2023, the beginning of 2023, I think they shifted, especially with all of the AI coming out and these language models. They said, actually, we're now going to interpret your keywords, which makes advertising, it can make it easier, but in most cases it makes it a lot harder. Because, for example, if I say, what I would say is exact match, what used to be exact match is now, exact match now is what used to be phrase match, and phrase match now is what used to be broad match. And broad match is just give me everybody as seeming. So when I say that, I mean, if I say Sharpie for sale near me, if I say that and I put that as phrase match in 2023 and beyond until they change it again, Google's now interpreting that, saying, okay, they want a Sharpie. They're looking for Sharpie for sale. So that could mean somebody might input company selling Sharpies. That's not Sharpie for sale near me, but it's similar and it's kind of the same idea. Or Google might interpret Sharpie to be pen. So someone that searches for pens for sale near me. Now, me as an advertiser, I say, no, I don't want you to advertise for pens. I said Sharpies. I sell Sharpies, not pens. And now Google goes, well, they mean pen or they mean Sharpie. And so it's kind of this fight with Google nowadays to get it to understand exactly who you're looking for and what you're targeting, because they've opened it up now to, well, we interpret your search results now, which helps Google.
What happens when you put AI in front of decisions on this stuff, right?
Exactly, right.
Sharpies or pens?
Now, it may not seem like a big difference with that, but then you get into, I'm trying to think of a better example, but there are certain products that, or names that are a big difference, right? And you wouldn't want to go anywhere near this word, but Google keeps trying to interpret it as that.
Like Lamborghini? You get ads for BMWs?
Sure, right? Now, hopefully Google would recognize that that's a brand. But I have certainly run into instances where it's tricky for certain niches, especially. They're hard to target exactly who you're looking for because Google wants to kind of throw everybody they can at it, even though you're saying no.
Yep.
Somebody who's looking for a BMW is not in the market for a Lamborghini. And so why would I want to spend my money to get them to click on my ad?
So if I could kind of summarize what you're saying, it's such a diverse platform enhancement that you're going to need to re-educate yourself on a lot of information. You're going to have to dive in for 20, 30, 40 hours just to understand what's changed. But if you want to spend that time, you can, or you could reach out to other like we could do that for our customers. But reach out to somebody that does this for a living and they'll know how to navigate that part of the ecosystem.
Exactly. It is a minefield. And so it's best that you reach out to someone like us or someone who is specialized in Google Ads that knows how to navigate that minefield and avoid those money pits, because it's very easy for you to just spend money and get zero return on it.
Yeah, that's really the name of the game is, if you want to spend your time doing it, great. If you want to outsource it, that's probably a better idea because, you could do your own plumbing, you could do your own electrical work. Your electrician knows the changes to the National Electric Code. your plumber knows the changes to the code, and knows what to do to make sure that it's done right.
Mm-hmm. And it's never a set it up once and you're done. Unfortunately, it's
Yeah,
constantly evolving. You
and
constantly have to
plumbing
be
is.
looking for.
You hope.
You hope.
You hope. Um, yeah,
Well, I mean,
it's a
that's why the
constant.
code changes, right? It's new things have been discovered, like backflows or um, venting or any of those
Hmm.
things in the plumbing. Um, or we just did I just remodeled my basement, and when we put in the electrical panel, that's one that I can wire up an electrical outlet. I could do that all day long. Doing the panel, the sub panel, I'm not touching that. Like I've got the skill, I could do the wires, but I don't know the code and I don't know the whys. I'm gonna hire that out and work with somebody that can that's licensed, and I can inspect it. And I can make sure that it's done right. Um, I could Surprising thing, I found out you could actually kill somebody if you wire up a sub panel wrong.
I
Um,
believe it.
rare occurrence, but that's kind of why we have code. Um, so good news is search engine optimization won't kill anybody, but you gotta turn to the experts for some of that.
Could empty your
But
pockets if you're not careful.
yep. Artie, what else is on our deck?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
It's a psychic ability you've got. It's one of the reasons you're a flight engineer. Is you know where I'm going before I even think of going there.
Yep. So we got two things that are involved with Apple, but we're going to go with the nicer of the two. And once you hear it, you're going to be wondering, why is this one the nicer of the two? So Apple's Wi-Fi positioning system, this is taken from Dark Reading, can be used to map and track Wi-Fi access points around the globe. A presentation at Black Hat 2024, a researcher from the University of Maryland demonstrated how he mapped hundreds of millions of these access points in a matter of days without needing any Apple device or any kinds of permission.
Well, that's impressive.
Okay, don't read the not nice Apple posting. That one's dark. So that's one of those things that we've got such a diverse technology set, right? They're still finding problems and vulnerabilities in our Wi-Fi stack. That is the technology that is, you got a router. How does it connect? What are the protocols involved? Um, Gosh, I could geek this up if you want, but we're still finding vulnerabilities in that whole protocol set, the way everything handshakes. Um, I'm a little shocked that it's out there, but I'm also not surprised that we found a vulnerability that affects the world, right? But I mean, could you imagine the power of mapping all the Wi-Fi access points on the planet?
The researchers went as far as they could. They
I
had
mean, that's
mapped.
Like
that's
hundreds of millions.
Well,
how do they capture that data? Are they intercepting satellites or?
no. There is what's called a BSSID, Basic Service Set Identifiers, and the way that the Apple servers are set up to handle requests for those is that if it gets a valid request, it will send back nearby um, other BSSIDs or devices that are near that one. And you don't even have to request the extra ones, they will send you a large list of them. And yeah, they found a method of, spoofing to get a response for a valid BSS ID to be sent back. And once they had one, it was just a matter of sending in more requests. And Google has a similar system set up, except to prevent this, they charge for requests.
Hmm. Well,
But
but let's Well, let's take a look at this from another side. Um, they're harvesting that data from Apple.
Yeah.
Apple has this data.
Yep.
Google has this data. These guys just found a way to exfiltrate that data out so they could do something nefarious with it. Well, I mean,
Potentially.
we're trusting that these big data brokers are handling our data responsibly. Like Apple is going to know all the access points on the planet. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Is it necessary? They do. So that's a thing. But if somebody wants to ask a question of that, they have to go through Apple and, best business practices of a multi-billion-dollar company will say you don't need to know that. Black hat, you get a black hat hacker. Let's go back to that Windows vulnerability a couple weeks back, the 8.8, which I think should be way higher, where every Windows device is vulnerable.
It was a 6.8.
It's what?
They classified it as a 6.8.
Oh,
Out of 10?
it went,
Yeah.
Oh, well, that seems odd,
oh.
knowing what it
Well, I mean,
does.
the idea of hacking into anybody's computer Wi-Fi and taking full control of that should not be a 6.8.
No, it shouldn't.
But if you combine that with this database, all the Wi-Fi access points. Okay. Now they don't know just the site IDs. They know everything about those adapters. Apple, Google, anybody else is cataloging all this. Shodan.
Mhm.
If a black hat hacker gets into that and says, I want to put a payload that will attack this known vulnerability on Windows computers, and just go infect 100,000 routers. It's not much, right? 100,000 out of millions and millions and millions. Now those routers can do the dirty work, but you found them through databases.
Yeah.
Anyways, I
And
don't know exactly where I'm going with this, other than it's frightening that these companies have this kind of data on us.
Right.
some of the information that they have stated that they were able to find would have valuable tactical use, or you know you once you know someone's specific device ID, you'd be able to track them,
Hmm.
which
Yeah,
is
I
just
was just
scary to
about to
me
say that.
because
I was just about to ask that
they
if they are
go
able.
ahead.
Sorry, you already go ahead.
Or you go ahead.
I was just about to bring that up. Is yeah, if I mean, I don't know what exact information is in these requests, but I mean, if you could see a device ID, then that becomes super dangerous and a huge violation of privacy, I would say. Um, because yeah, I mean, you can literally, if you think about how dense Wi-Fi access points are, I mean, you could track someone almost perfectly through public spaces.
Well, there's that, but there's also the, um, let's go another direction with that. Cameras, Huawei cameras were hacked 15 years ago, something like that. And it was seen that some bad actors had got in and they have access to your camera. Who cares? They see my exit door. They see the front door to my house, my Ring doorbell, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. It's a camera. Well, Jackson, what would you say if I was a threat actor and I said I can see every camera in the state and I can track you as you drive around across my array of 150,000 cameras?
Yeah, I
So
don't
that
like
one
that
camera is
idea.
no longer a problem, but the bulk of the cameras, that's a problem. So finding a hack on tracking one person, that's a thing. But if you got a hack that can affect one person, you can find a hack that can affect all people. And so then you can start tracking trends and movements. Did they visit a football game? Did they visit a coffee shop? Did they visit Walmart? What are the common threads between these groups of people? And I mean, I bet my bottom dollar that Google's doing some sort of analytics on that they're not telling us about. But
Mhm.
they've got the data because we hit the I agree button. They've got our data. These black hat hackers, they did not. I didn't hit the agree button to them. So it's awesome that these guys are finding these vulnerabilities, and it sucks that these vulnerabilities exist. There's such valuable data. It should be way more protected than it is. On the other side, we should know what that data is.
Mhm. And that's the thing. I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where companies will really be. They'll actually tell us what they keep and where they keep it and how they keep it and how they collect it.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll
I don't.
just put an AI engine on top of it and just let AI think for us.
Right. So I don't. Unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever get to that point where it'll be actually explicit, unless some serious legislation comes down, and even then, many companies get away with things that seem, against legislation or just morally against my own morals of tracking people's information.
And one thing that I think adds to that is the fact that, if they get a fine for it, it's something like $100,000, and that's a drop in the bucket compared to what that data that they're selling or collecting is worth. So they're more than willing to pay off, 1,000 fines that are like that than, have to follow the regulation.
When fines is a cost of business, that's we're doing something wrong. But I think to the point, we should have we should require studies on what does this data do, what does it mean. Great, we're collecting the location data of everybody. What are the possible advantages and what are the possible disadvantages? And those things should be published. We should all have a say on our data is available or not. Because and there's been cases of this where former boyfriend girlfriend, you get some cyber stalking going on. Well, if I can get exact location of that person, as if I was stalking them, if I could find the exact location, I could make their life really annoyed. There could be some physical threat. There could be actual crimes happening because this data is available. Um,
So
on the good side, we can sell better products. We can, like you're saying, with the Google ads, we could target ads better to sell somebody what they're actually wanting instead of scatterblasting them with, flying toasters or, uh, whatever useless equipment that they may want.
So, one thing before Apple has been made aware of this issue, and there is a solution that they've offered for just anybody that's out there, because it doesn't matter if it's an Android device, it doesn't matter if it's a Wi-Fi router somewhere, it's going to get mapped. Um, but Apple has implemented an opt-out option, and you just have to add an underscore no map to the end of your device's name on the public network. So
There's been companies that do that for years.
it
That's
feels
actually not new.
new or not, it just does not feel like it's enough.
Well, and think about it this way. Um, Putting no map on the name, that has to live in the database with the no map in the name.
Yeah,
You're just adding another data point to the data set. So it's, yeah,
it feels like it's a gesture, a specious gesture, I think is the term for it. Um, Something that they claim will do what they want it to, but it's just got no merit behind it.
yeah. Yeah, and it's I guess that's the big question is what is this world coming to when it comes to privacy, security, vulnerabilities, trackability? What is the common good? What is making the world a better place and what is making the world a little less safe, a little more dangerous, a little more exposed. How much privacy do we have? I'm a strong proponent of privacy because, um, I like the way Steve Gibson said it. Just because I have nothing to hide doesn't mean I want to share it with you.
Yeah, it's a tough time. I feel like we say this almost every episode, but I mean it's a constant thing, and we see it every day. The push and pull of privacy and convenience, I guess you can say, of having all that information stored somewhere so that it can be used by someone to make your life better
Mm-hmm.
Or worse.
or worse.
Well, and that could be one of the potential downsides is, making life just a little bit worse so somebody can sell you a product to make your life a little less worse. I mean, we see it in video games all the time. Pay for pain, right? You have an obstacle and it's made artificially worse so that you would then pay real world money for the cure to that pain.
Don't get me started on that.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's shift gears. We got just a couple minutes left here. Um, so Russia is shutting down VPNs and voice over IP.
Yes, they
Um,
are.
yeah,
They have added a bunch of VPN apps to their banned technology list. I don't know what the list is called, but it's put out by the FSB, um, the Russian equivalent of our CIA. So yeah, the reason that Apple is related to that is they still function in Russia, and they removed a lot of these apps from the App Store. And it's not just VPNs; it's also the voice over IP. So people cannot
so basically
Go ahead.
any means of communicating outside of the country are being controlled. I think
It's
that's
that,
probably the best way of saying it.
and it's also any means of communicating via encryption, because the
Mm.
VPNs, they will encrypt in the voice over IP. You can tap, but it takes a lot of processing power to decrypt a voice over IP call. So
Yeah.
that is the believed intent of this.
Well, and it's interesting with and I'm not going to get into the politics, right? But there is a war, there is strife, there is a difference of opinions. Um, Russia, in part of their response, has said we're going to break off ties from the internet and create our own internet. Um, it's really kind of a sad day because the internet was founded as like a community, open space, free, shared resources, thoughts, um, mind experiments, and like how do we make the world a better place? How do we evolve humans to that next level? Um, and for a long time, it's been open and exposed for everybody to access. It's the very best thing humanity has ever created. And at the exact same time, it's the worst thing humanity has ever created because all the good and all the bad exist at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
People are trying to hack you. We just talked a little bit about that. But if we break the internet into two or three, or what is it, 174 countries now? If we break the
193.
internet into, it's even worse. If we can break the internet into our own little zones, our own little spaces, and firewall it off so that my country can't talk to your country unless my country's official says that I can. How does science expand? How does space exploration? How does deep sea exploration? How does the international science station down in Antarctica? How does that cooperate? Now, data's got to go through even more steps just to get across. Uh, international commerce. How do we find goods in other countries? How do we move that across?
Mm-hmm.
If I had a country that was manufacturing goods, obviously not in a sanctioned country, that would be really bad. But I want to have a VPN between me and that country. I want assurances that my communication is secure between me and my manufacturer or my warehouse or whatever. I don't want to lose that security. So splinternet is kind of the term that they've come up with. You're splintering the internet into different little zones, little groups. I think it's just a massive step in the wrong direction. And it sounds like Russia's taking even further steps to prevent outside access and just put up a stronger fence and a stronger firewall. Kind of a sad day.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you think about, people communicate across the world daily, all the time. So even something as simple as, a video call could be restricted because
Mhm.
you're trying to move across a splinter net. And so it's definitely a sad day, like you said, to think about that. And as you're talking about, commerce internationally, a funny little story I have is, a coworker of mine, he was born in China, and he spoke fluent Chinese. I think he even read Japanese, and we were looking for parts for a device. I don't even remember what device it was now, and we could not find a single thing for it. And I say, all right, well, you take a stab at it, try and go find something. He found it immediately on some Chinese site, and he's got a screen. I was like, well, I can't even read it. He goes, well, I can, and he goes, well, here's all the information, and we can get them, for $5 a piece, which was, it's amazing to realize that there's even so much more outside of me personally. I see such a small sliver of the internet, but there's so much more to it when you add in what the rest of the world contributes.
Yeah, what was it? China has more Chinese people speak English than there are Americans.
Yep.
Like Americans speak all sorts of languages, and there's a finite number of Americans, and China has more Chinese who speak English than our population. So that's cool. English is a good unifying language, but it's not the dominant one. It's just universal because we had the Great British Empire that colonized and conquered all those places so many years ago.
Thanks, Britain.
But the global village is breaking, right? We got the ability to go find $5 parts on a Chinese website. Well, if China shuts down that commerce, they lose out on that revenue. We lose the opportunity to get those goods and make the world a better place through the efforts, or learn, or explore, or expand our minds. It's not a good thing. I mean, there's bad people on the internet. Let's get them off the internet. But I don't think drawing fences around geopolitical lines is the best way of solving that problem. I think there's a better solution, and it's definitely not a technology solution.
Yeah, and that just makes me think as well. You have to have your own um what's the word for it? Your infrastructure. And so for smaller countries, they don't have. I mean, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they have the ability to create an internet like what we have today. I mean, of course, larger powers like Russia, China, the United States, Canada, they can probably come up with an internet that's pretty robust and has access to most sites that people want to go to. But I mean, then you cripple smaller countries if you don't allow them access to sites that people need access to worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, because if you've got these countries trying to develop their own internet, it's possible. But I mean, if Notepad is 41 years old, and it's just now getting to the point where it gets spell check, um, that's, you got to dedicate a lot of time, expertise, and resource towards building your own internet.
Who's going to
especially if
fund
the
it?
idea is it can't talk to the global internet. We've got so many millions of man hours built into the system we have today. To start it from scratch would be virtually impossible. But sounds like some people are trying. I think we're actually at the bottom of the hour. I think we should probably wrap this one up. It's been a fantastic discussion. I love getting into the mind exercises and thought exercises.
Yeah, it's been great.
Well, Artie and Jackson, I think I'm going to say thank you for joining us on this podcast. This is wonderful. As the name of the episode is, this one should go to 11. I think some places we might have touched the 11, but if not, we'll turn it up to 12 next week. Until then, thanks for your time, and we'll see you then. Take care.